I want to show you how to use tissue to pull up some beautiful clouds. So I've got my tissues ready and a big soft brush here. And what we're going to do is just wet the sky area, tape to tape the way we do it, tape to tape back and forth. Make sure you're not scrubbing it, but you're just delivering some water there. Okay. There we go. And I'm going to pull that water down all the way to the bottom. Just water. Okay, and I look at it to see, did I get that distributed every which way? From the side I can see, it seems to be shining. Excellent. It's puddling a bit when I tip it, so I'll just wipe that tape area with this tissue. Okay, there we go. It looks like it's ready. So I'm going to pull out some of this blue. What a pretty blue. And maybe some of this blue too. And I am going to put some of that paint on here like I mean it. Real often, the blue at the horizon is a bit greener, more towards aqua. And then as you go up in the sky, it tends to be more purpley or a truer blue. Can you see the difference? It's subtle, but it's there. Make sure you go all the way to the tape. I'm going to add a little bit more because I want some intensity. And even when I'm just laying in a loose way, I'm still having fun with my strokes, you can see. So they're not boring. Okay, let's give this a little tip to blend it. I'd rather nature and gravity blend it than my brush. Okay. So I'm looking and I'm already seeing suggestions of where clouds could want to be, let's put it that way. So I'm just bunching up this tissue and I'm going to say, I'm going to let that be part of a cloud. That looks pretty good. Maybe some of that. Maybe a swish. Let's go over here. Turn your tissue so that you have a dry, clean side if you want to get a nice bright area. Well, it's wet like this, you can sweep and get some nice action going. I'm going to get another tissue and come back in here and say, well, what else do I want to do? Maybe I want a little bit of a lower cloud coming down here. We're in the entertainment business. We want to make shapes and colors that are fun to look at. It looks pretty good. Can live with that. And if I wanted to pull up a real bright white, I put a little bit of water on the tissue, wrap my finger around it, and touch in that area. Just a little. And if it's not too dry, it'll pick up a bit. Okay, I like that. I think that looks good. Okay, now I'm going to show you one of my favorite tricks. And that is, we're going to put a mountain here, but we're going to get the texture for that mountain with Saran Wrap. So, mountain color. We've got a lot of choices, but I'm thinking I want it to be kind of rocky maybe. So what if I start off with this gray, but I mix a little bit of this blue with it? That's looking pretty good. Maybe a little bit more gray to darken it up. And maybe just a teeny bit of this red. Ow. That made it kind of bright. Let me subdue it a bit with some blue. Wouldn't even mind adding a little bit of this green. Okay, here we go. We're going in. And right down here, I'm gonna put in a worm, basically. It's a worm of paint. Can you see it? Kind of a wiggly, wet mountain. And I'm pulling it down a little bit more. I'm feeding in more paint just for variety, see? So it'll look like some vegetation is growing on it, or maybe one is in front of the other. It's this kind of mixing on the paper that makes watercolor so wonderful. Okay. Squint your eyes to see if it's boring or if you need to maybe let something win. Like, let's let this peak rise a little bit. That'll be the winner. That looks like Batman's ears. Oh, let's see, let's fix that. Maybe a bump here. Okay. So for this to work, we have to put the Saran Wrap on while it's still wet. I'm going to soften that bottom edge a bit. Just the water in my brush is pulling that down. All right. Take a piece of plastic wrap. Make sure it's whiter than your paper that you're working on. And then rub it together. We call it making it mad. And this is just going to give it some texture. Not that you want to tear it. You don't want to tear it, but you want it to get lots of wrinkles. So scrunch it together and pinch it. That's good. gonna work just fine. Okay. Okay, so now that it's all wrinkly, I'm gonna lay it down here on my mountain. And as I do that, the saran wrap is giving patterns to the wet mountain. I'm gonna push that down so it kind of sticks a little bit. You can push this up. I wanted to make a peak go up a little bit higher. As long as my watercolor paint underneath there is still wet, I can move this a bit. Okay, that looks good. Now I'm just gonna wait for a minute while that dries. Kind of dried out over here, so I'm going to sneak under here and add a little bit more moisture so that has a chance to play. Okay. Dried out here too, so let me add a little bit more paint right there. So you have to wait for it to dry and be patient. I'm not very patient, but in fact, I'm going to rush this a little bit. But I like the way it looks, so I'm happy with that. You can take your brush and negotiate a little bit while it's still damp. If you see anything that looks like it needs adjustment, now's your moment. Yeah, I can live very happily with this. Okay.